Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, inspiration, and hope. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Resume Whisperer and Corporate Culturist, starring Mr. Joseph STETTER, who will be joining us from Canada. Thank you so much for everyone who is listening or watching on the live or the replay. Wherever you are, we welcome you. We have a whole new following to welcome and introduce for Roku. Thank you so much for being with us. We're super happy to have you. Joseph and I connected a year or so ago. He came to us, I believe, through Google, and I just was really amazed at how many people he has been able to help, whether it is individuals who are looking to make a career change or they're interested in getting some guidance, or it's organizations looking to hire individuals. Joseph STETTER is the man. He is the expert in all fields having to do with gainful employment. Let's welcome him to the program. Hello, Joseph.
Hello. Thank you again. Excited for another episode. Again, I will apologize to the audience for my casual attire. I'm still recovering from shoulder surgery, and it is hard for me to move my arm to get dressed more fancy in that.
Well, we're here to pick your brain, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. So how are you healing, by the way, and would you recommend this surgery to others?
I think it's too early to know. That I did it because I got to the level where I was in so much pain lifting my beautiful kids that I was like, you know what, if I have to sacrifice 2 to 3 months right now to where, you know, I can't really lift them, or I can lift them with my left hand, but limited kind of thing, in order to be able to enjoy spending quality time with them when they grow up. And, you know, like my son is 1.5 years and, you know, likes to play with trucks and likes to kick the ball around and stuff like that. So I just want to be in a position where I'm not in pain to actually do that with me. So for me, the decision made sense from a perspective of long-term of the benefit. You know, so So far, so good with physio and range of motion. Um, and hopefully there won't be any complications that surprise me and kind of, afterwards, like let's say the amount of physio will be longer. But at the end of the day, surgery is one of those, you know, is it worth it for you? What's the risk assessments? And in my case, it was my right shoulder, which is my dominant shoulder that I write, and I use most things to lift and things like that. It was just, you know what, the pain level was so high that I was like, I can't even function. I can't sleep. So it was worth that just to be able to have a normal night's sleep kind of thing.
Well, we wish you all the best and hope that your healing goes quickly and painlessly. And I'd like to segue with something that you just said about pain. Many times we are in some type of emotional, and sometimes it can become physical pain because we're not in our lane, whether it's in our career, it's in our personal life. When someone is in a job that is not really serving them, they're not showing up as the A player, maybe they've just lost their desire, you're able to help them. You're able to help people from all different walks of life and situations. But I want to talk specifically about companies, leaders that are looking to hire people. Can a leader tell, if you're interviewing someone, can they tell that that person is in pain in where they currently are in their career?
I think it's related to how good they are at asking open-ended questions and asking for details or insights. Just because someone says, "Tell me about this," most people have been programmed to kind of say, "Here's the formula of smile," a little bit too much, maybe. I mean, smiling is important, don't get me wrong, but this is the information you want to relay. And so, uh, it's considered a trick question to go, "Tell me about a coworker you disliked," or "Tell me about your leadership." Where again, you're not supposed to go into the negative energy side of the conversation because it can be detrimental in essence. But there's also a level of um, understanding that um, in the conversation of how or what, there's ways to gather information. So, for example, one of the questions that I've asked candidates, and it gives me good insights on how serious they are about changing jobs, is if you were the owner or the director or the whatever C-level executives, and you had the opportunity to change 3 to 5 things about the position itself or the organization, what would you change? And this is an opportunity for people to kind of, we'll call it, vent without getting sucked into that negative energy, because they're saying, you know what, I would have better communication. So they're saying that the communication is bad, but they're not saying, oh my God, it's horrible, and getting to that. And so, again, a good interviewer knows how to ask those kind of questions and knows to gauge the level of depth of answer. But a lot of executives tend to kind of follow the standard, "This has been used for the past 40 years, let's stick with it" idea.
Perfect. Thanks so much for explaining that. I appreciate it. I'm also wondering, are certain cities known for having the best talent?
I think that's a loaded question in that it depends on what talent you're looking at. There are certain areas like California or San Diego that's known for Silicon Valley. In Canada, like Ottawa, Toronto have more of the high tech than the rest of Canada in terms of at least headquarters, in terms of companies in there. But it's not necessarily that there's more talent here or more talent there, because I think it's relative to the industry and the profession. Like, for example, if you're in an aeronautical engineer, Toronto is not the city for you, uh, because most of the aeronautical, you know, companies are, let's say, headquartered in other places, like, so it depends on where or how or what the profession is. And obviously the bigger the city, the potential more competition there is, and therefore higher demands of you working rather than the work-life balance mentality. This is a huge, huge difference between East Coast and West Coast in North America. In the East Coast, there's a mindset that it's a rat race, and there's a adage that says that you live to work. And in the West Coast, the opposite kind of holds true, where you work to live. And though that simple phrase makes a huge difference on whether or not you'll work all weekend or not. Because in the East Coast, when your boss asks you to work, it's a mentality of, okay, how long do you need me for? In the West Coast, it's like, it's the weekend. That's my time. I don't work. So I think it's really dependent on the profession. It depends on the industry. It depends on, you know, location. It depends on company culture. It depends on the leadership and the expectations for the leaderships. Like right now is accounting season. So any accountant in North America is stressed because this is their crazy busy season. And it's 2-3 months of hell. But after that, there's a lot of incentives to not quit by having, work from home, flexible hours, banked hours that you can take as days off, whatever the combination that the company has. So I think that's an influence. Whereas in, engineering, for example, construction depends on the weather. If you're in Minnesota and there was a foot of snow and it's 0 degrees, you can't really build anything. So there's a difference there because that would be a quieter time for it. But I think it's again, there's a lot of variables on whether or not it's a black and white question or answer.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Thank you. Something I want to share, and I may have shared this in the past, I'm not really sure, but being from the East Coast, I actually worked for organizations that were in the Midwest. And I remember I went for my final interview. I think there were like 7 interviews. And I was meeting with the then CEO, and I was wearing a red suit and had red nails and red lipstick. And he said, when I look at you, I just see red, and that doesn't fit in here in our culture. And I said, well, I'm in Philadelphia and New York, and it does fit in there. And he said, but I'm like, well, that's where I'll be calling on. That's where my clients will be. And he said, well, you seem to be very assertive and aggressive. And I said, have you ever tried getting someone's attention in New York? It's not the same thing. So it's interesting because that was, I think, a lesson for them. And then also a lesson for me that you have to sort of be a chameleon. But I'm just wondering if employers have that kind of mindset that if they are in a certain part of the country and they're looking for people that have those types of corporate values that the organization has based on where they are.
Again, really good organizations understand how important what you just said is. And so they have local HR that creates policies and implements some of these subtle differences. Organizations that are not as good as understanding corporate culture will not. So one of my clients is a company, or a former client was a company called Tata Consulting Services. They're massive. They almost own a third of India. And they were running the workforce in Canada as if it was in India. And every decision had to be approved in India, and every decision had to. And so it created a huge level of inefficiency because Canadians are not in India. Canadians aren't going to accept, you're expected to work 90 hours a week for your salary kind of thing. And so I actually had to go meet with the VPs and create their corporate culture manual in a way that kind of said, look, you can't have every decision approved. Like you're doing a massive project right now that's $50 million. And if you don't have someone here locally to approve certain things up to, let's say, $1 million, you're never going to get this project done and you're going to ruin your reputation. And they listened and understood that, okay, it's an Indian company and there are certain things that fundamentally this is the culture and this is the workforce, but they have to adapt to the market that they're in. And so smart companies and that are understanding that there is a massive shift in the workforce. It's not like, yes, people still need a job, but more and more people are looking at your reputation online. People are connecting with people that work in the company and asking them what's it like to work there before they even come for the interview. So if you're not present to the fact that there's cultural differences even between East Coast, Central, West Coast, uh, and anything in between, there's difference between kind of the north, like New York, versus having, let's say, Florida, which is more in the south. They're still East Coast, but there's definitely differences in mindset. So it's really important to hone in on that and make sure that those are things that are constantly being addressed, unless you want to be a company that has a very high turnover ratio and therefore a very high negative reviews online kind of thing.
Absolutely. Joseph, I have a question about something that you just said, and you and I touched on this on other episodes. But if you think about it, I'll be 61. And when I was in the corporate world, it was cradle to grave. I started with AT&T. I thought I was going to be there forever. And I know you've had a number of different positions. Is it more interesting to have a number of experiences when you're meeting with a prospective leader for whom you might be working, to say, you know what, I worked in this organization, I picked up these skills, I worked over here and I picked up those skills? Is that more attractive than I was in the same organization in different positions in the company, or it doesn't really matter?
I think there's a pro and con to both, because I'm someone that switched careers quite a bit because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so I've learned how to leverage the fact that I have a more holistic understanding of business and how business should work. But again, in the interview side of things, it's your responsibility to share why the fact that you've switched jobs a few times is in the interest or benefit of the potential employer, and what you can do or how you can use that to leverage better sales. So, in the example that you just gave us, for example, um, when you were being interviewed, even though you were being interviewed centrally, if your target market is the East Coast, it's a different personality type. It's a different person. And so if you don't understand that, your sales might not work, because there are certain, I'll use the word rituals or habits that need to occur in order to make sure that you can close a sale. Yes, you want to be aware of your audience. I mean, in any form, like if you go to stand up comedy, there is a lot of brilliant comedians. It doesn't mean that all of them are my style or my flavor or my interest. And so I've gone to stand up shows where I did not enjoy the show because the comedians, for example, were extremely vulgar and it's not my sense of humor. People in the audience laughed. I didn't. So, yes, you have to be aware of how to leverage. I have experience that's I can bring to the table. I have knowledge or I have skills because I did X, Y, and Z, and not just because I've been for a company for 30 years. Now, on the other hand, if you've worked for a company for a long time, there's a sense of I can count on you. You're not going to leave me. And so if I invest money to train you and develop you, you're going to be somebody I can count on for a longer time. And that is reassuring to companies. But the market has changed so drastically that business schools are teaching students today to work for a company for 3 to 5 years, leave on good terms, go see if the grass is greener on the other side. And if it's not, come back a year later, and you're more likely to get the raise and the promotion because they'll understand how much work you did and appreciate you than trying to climb up the ladder for the next 20 years in the same organization. So the mindset, Dr. Jacalyn, I mean, you shared your age, but the mindset of, working for 35 years in one company and then retiring has completely changed. And it is very rare this day and age to find people that have very little movement.
You know what I think is interesting? I was just thinking about this as you were talking. I've been divorced 25 years, but in this country, I don't know how it is in Canada, for so long, it was sort of like an incredible rite of passage if you've been married for 50 years or 40 years. But yeah, we go to work and we're going to stay there for a couple years and we're going to leave. So it's really kind of the opposite viewpoint, isn't it?
Well, again, unfortunately, there is a level where I will say the even relationship. Like I've been married now, coming on 5 years, and I've been with my wife for 7 years, and my parents were married for 36 years, and uh, unfortunately, my father passed away, and that's kind of what led to the end of the marriage. Sorry, I'm just readjusting there. And I know plenty of people that, you know, wow, you've been married for 45 years, you've been married for 50 years. But I also know, like, family of mine that, were divorced within a year or divorced within 2 years. And unfortunately, this is where I will say I feel that we've kind of become a culture that is all about instant gratification, and we're not ready to commit or fight. You know, there is a level where, my wife and I were going through a little bit of heartache, and we decided, like, we love each other, we care about each other. Let's go get therapy and have somebody guide us to listen to each other better. And the therapist said something that, when I kind of processed what she said, it was so profound. And she said, when you get married, in essence, there's six people in the bed, because there's you and your wife, and then there's her parents, and then there's your parents. And so they're all affecting the dynamic of the relationship. They're all affecting the culture because you have a particular upbringing. So if you were raised to, let's say, have this or this happen, and now you're in a relationship where somebody believes differently, like, for example, again, being, let's say, Jewish, according to Jewish faith, the roles of the man and the roles of the woman are clearly defined as part of being religious, as part of, uh, this is how you learn to love each other, because you accept this. And so in the more religion, it's still practiced. But in this modern world, like, I grew up where my father was work, work, work. And, he was involved with, like, Rotary Club, and but it wasn't necessarily till later on in my life where he was more directly involved with what the kids are doing and how they're doing it and so forth. My kids are 3.5 years old and 1.5, and I'm fully involved in their stuff. So, the dynamic of, okay, my wife enjoys cooking. Okay, so she can do the cooking, but I will do the laundry, or I'll do the this to offset. And we try to balance where, some days I'm at 100% and she's at zero, and some days she's at 100% and I'm at zero, and some days we're both at 50%. And so it's finding that balance. And what I'm noticing is that people tend to, as soon as there's an argument, as soon as there's a disagreement, just go, okay, that's it, we're done. And there's no level of desire to fix the problem, to work on it, to understand each other. And so I'm noticing this in a lot of companies too, where it's kind of like, okay, we'll hire somebody younger, we'll just hire somebody who just finished education because they're cheaper. And all of a sudden, you're dismissing the knowledge that's been acquired through experience. You're dismissing the fact that, you know, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers have more maturity and can handle more than some of the millennials. Um, I watched a video today and made me both laugh and cry, where this woman basically ranted that her child identifies as a cat, and clearly probably a small child, and she's not going to sue, but she went to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian said he could not take care of her son because he's not qualified to take care of humans. And her video was, but he identifies as a cat. And I was like, did we really get this far in the world to the left that a, 3-year-old that has imagination and says, I identify out of play is now a life choice? I mean, my daughter is into Paw Patrol right now. And so she's obsessed with Sky. 6 months ago, she was Peppa Pig. 6 months before that, she was Cocomelon. And, we had constructions in our neighborhood, so she saw tractors and was obsessed with tractors for a month. She's 3. I'm not going to start putting her into you identify as a tractor or you identify as Sky from there, because she has an amazing imagination. And I celebrate her imagination and I support it. So I spoil her. So right now she's into Paw Patrol. So I buy her Paw Patrol toys and until she gets bored with them, and then we'll switch to whatever is the next phase of her kind of growing. But if companies are and individuals are now, this whole conversation of you can be whoever you want, but if I don't know you, don't expect me to know all your pronouns or all your things until you tell me. Once you tell me, if I'm being rude and I don't want to address you by your pronoun, that's a whole other conversation. But I can only address you on manners of you are dressed, let's say, like a woman, Dr. Jacalyn, so I will address you as ma'am or she and so forth. And if you say, hey, I identify as this, I will correct myself. But if you get upset at me because based on your appearance, I was trying to be polite or have manners, we're in a very scary world kind of thing.
Yeah, wow, there's so many things that you mentioned that I could really dive into. One thing I just want to say that here on this platform, I have challenges as well because I don't know someone's pronouns. And if I see you and I think he, you tell me, no, I'm they. Okay, well, now I know. I didn't know. How would I know if you didn't tell me? So I think it's
Right.
we want to
And those
do the
are
right thing and be respectful.
right. There's a level of respect, but you have to understand that in the job market, again, you're applying for a job. There's a name on the resume. Based on the name, there is an association to male or female, right? If I interview somebody and they say before we start, I want to let you know that I identify as a lamp. Like, okay, you're interviewing for a job, so how am I interviewing a lamp for a job, kind of thing? There are certain things that again express yourself any way that you want. 20 years ago, people that had tattoos were considered to be, bikers and, you know, kind of associated with, drugs and alcohol and whatever the case may be. Nowadays, there's a level of understanding that tattoos are memories, they're honoring somebody, kind of thing, right? And there's tattoos and there's tattoos. If you have, a portrait of somebody, if you have an image that's symbolically to you, more power. But if you have like a skull or a snake coming out of your neck going into your face, and you're trying to be taken seriously in the banking world, might not be. In a similar way that if I go to a doctor's office and my doctor has a blue mohawk or rainbow mohawk and 32 earrings here and 32 earrings here and a tongue ring and a nose ring, my initial reaction would be not what I expect for a doctor. And there might be a little bit of fear of, is this the right professional for me? If I need to hire a painter and two people come to my house, one of them is in a suit and tie, looks like he's never touched paint in their life, and one of them is wearing painter's overalls that has paint on them, by default, I will trust the person with the overalls because it looks like they've done the job. Now, that person might be the salesperson, and so it is on me to do my due diligence to check that the company is legitimate, to check, work, maybe ask for references. But if I don't do that, your appearance, your communication style will have an impact or effect on how you are perceived. We as a society have become like, we're using more and more acronyms and less words. I don't intend to run a company where I'm speaking to people in acronyms like BRB, LOL, TTY. No, like that to me is not a conversation. I was teaching like public speaking, and I showed like a funny video, and my students looked at me and went, "Oh my god, sir, that's so lol." And I'm like, "Lol?" They're like, "Yeah, LOL."
What does that even? I mean, I know laugh out loud, but what does that mean of their perception of the video?
No, but it was more of that lol became the conversation. I'm
Ah,
like, I'm never gonna hire somebody that goes, "Oh yeah, when something's funny, it's lol." Like, no, and even the word like, I'm trying to catch myself saying it, but we've become so, you know, sometimes you hear, let's say, millennials speaking, and this is the conversation. So like yesterday, like, oh my god, like, like I was talking to this boy, like, oh my god, like, and like, oh my god, and like he said like, oh my god, and like, and half hour all they said is like and oh my god. And their friends are like, yeah, I know. And I'm looking at I'm listening and going, you know what? There's there's nothing in this conversation that makes any sense whatsoever, and nothing's actually been said. So in the same breath, and I'm glad that you're laughing. Like, yes, the world has drastically changed in the last year and a half with AI, and a lot of kids are now, you know, learning how to use AI to get great grades, get into university, pass university, right? It's scary for me to think about the fact that it's possible that in the next year or so, we are going to have engineers that don't know how to think. Engineers that go, ChatGPT said this is what we should do, but ChatGPT doesn't take into account that you have weird weather. Like here in Canada, in Toronto, yesterday was approximately, I would say, 45, 50. Today was minus 15. So in the world of construction, for example, you cannot build, let's say, foundations and cement when it's minus weather. But ChatGPT, when they kind of create a schedule or solve the problem for you, does not take into account weather fluctuations, for example. And I think this is where there's such a massive gap of, AI is brilliant and it can simplify a lot of tasks and it can automate a lot of tasks. I'm not dismissing that. But individuals that now are going to go, I'm only going to do things through AI, are, setting up for in my opinion, potential crash because human value is going to be dismissed.
excellent points. Thank you so much. And, I just want to say something briefly on AI because we could do an entire series just on that. But you and I, as fellow authors, having books on Amazon, it's interesting because I have a couple of books coming out, and Your Beautiful Children will be starring in the one book, Lady Ella Joins the Gym, which is super exciting. When you go to upload your content now to Amazon KDP, there is a question there. Have you used artificial intelligence? I forget the exact
Yeah.
terminology. And it's an interesting question because if you're not keeping up, if you're not even aware of artificial intelligence, if you're never using like ChatGPT, I love to just run something by ChatGPT. What's the great name of an episode for a television show about this? And here it is, whatever. So my reason for bringing this up is, how will artificial intelligence and the use of it impact the questions that an employer is going to ask? So, by the way, Joseph, in preparing for this interview today, did you use artificial intelligence to learn anything about X, Y, and Z?
So again, here's the thing. I don't think that would be a direct question. The questions will have to become more situational, meaning here's a situation. How would you handle it? ChatGPT can get you through, and this is where I differ from many of the other experts in my realm, because I'm not trying to regurgitate what's been told for the past 40 years that, you should say that you're hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills. I'm not trying to, approach the interview from the same generic yes. And so there's a level where, again, the way that interviews are done are going to have to change, in the sense that whether it's personality assessments, whether it's psychometric assessments, whether it's, more situational. So here's what happened. What would you do to solve this? Right? ChatGPT can't prepare you for that. ChatGPT can tell you to say these words that are the correct lingo. ChatGPT can tell you to, um, you know, prepare this way or that way, but ChatGPT cannot tell your story because ChatGPT does not know your story.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. I really appreciate it. And again, I think we've got a lot of episodes we could even do just about that. So we're coming down to the end of this show. I want you to just let our audience know that you are open to having guests. We had a fabulous guest last week, and I think the week before
we are going to have we have some guests booked for the next few weeks. But yes, we are open to having guests. Whether it's your experience of looking for a job that you want to talk about, or whether it's you are in leadership, or like myself, you help other people kind of find a job, and to kind of bring a different perspective, that this is what's worked for you or your clients. This is kind of what has happened and why. And so you can register through their website to kind of bring you can register through the website to book yourself in as a guest. And again, we welcome both job seekers or people that are thinking of switching jobs, as well as leadership in a company or entrepreneurs that have people working for them, and what are the experiencing they're having with people in terms of good, bad, or ugly, and to have really more resource and understanding for people to maximize opportunities.
Thank you so much, Joseph. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us each and every week, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To connect with Joseph, you can take your phone right now or your device, and you can go ahead and scan the QR code. Joseph, we are having some guests, as you mentioned, and of course, there's more availability as this is a weekly show. Please go to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com. And you can book your session. Look for the show, Resume Whisperer. Look for the icon of Joseph, and you can go ahead and book in. Anything you'd like to add before we are automatically closed out?
Again, feel free to contact me, ask me questions. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. Whether it's the companies that are having trouble finding people, or individuals that need help to get a better job.
Fantastic. Thank you again. We'll be back next week. Take care. Bye, everyone.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette,
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I find really I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, BSD.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette. Building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional